I have just a few things to go over before we jump into our season finale, which is always so exciting, the Critter or Not game that Matt and Mike have been treating us to in our October Plants, Pests, and Pathogens for the last several years. And I've quoted myself as saying before, it's the most popular game among Extension Master Gardener volunteers. So we always enjoy it. And then they will share some monthly Be on the Lookout, the BOLOs. So plant pathogens and insect pests we should look out for in the next month. Caroline Richardson will close us out with a resource spotlight and a few program announcements. But one thing we're really excited about from this season is this was our 15th year of hosting Plants, Pests, and Pathogens in its current format. And we've been so fortunate to have Matt Bertone with us and Mike Munster over the years, sharing all of their wisdom and knowledge of insect identification and plant diagnosis. And we've got a few pictures there from years ago and then from today. Of course, I joined the team more recently in my role as the Extension Master Gardener Program State Coordinator. But I did find this picture from a few years ago when I was an agent, actually way back in 2010, when I was a guest speaker for one of the episodes. And then we're so fortunate to have had Caroline Richardson join us more recently. And if you don't know, Caroline does a lot of the behind the scenes work of organizing our speakers and making sure everything is and everybody's running on time and uploading our recordings. So we're so fortunate to have her on our team now. And we've had many great people over the years. You probably recognize some of these faces, especially if you've been tuning into Plants, Pests, and Pathogens a few years. Of course, Lucy Bradley still with us very much as our consumer and community horticulture specialist, and sometimes comes in and is our guest speaker. But of course, Lucy was the person who really had a huge role in reshaping Plants, Pests, and Pathogens into its current format. You may recognize Barbara Shue, who was the Plant Disease and Insect Clinic Director. She's also an emeritus professor. She, of course, is retired now, but during her time as the clinic director, she did host several of the episodes. We've got a couple of entomologists who were featured, especially in the earlier years in Plants, Pests, and Pathogens. Steve Bambera, who was our Extension consumer entomologist. Unfortunately, we don't have that position anymore in Extension, but shared with us lots of insect facts over the years. And then Dave Steffen, who was the entomologist with the Plant Disease and Insect Clinic, and shared his knowledge for many years, and is now retired and unfortunately passed away a few years ago and is very missed. But we're so excited that many of you have been with us for many of the years Plants, Pests, and Pathogens has been going. And so happy many of you have joined us, even if this is your first season or you're new to Extension Master Gardener and Plants, Pests, and Pathogens. We hope you will continue to join us each month, February through October. And you can explore all of these 15 years of topics, speakers, and recordings on our Index of Recordings page. And when you go there, you will see them all listed by year, by topic, and the speaker's name, and it will have instructions on how to watch the recordings. And Caroline Richardson is actually going to tell us a lot more about accessing the Plants, Pests, and Pathogens recordings during the resource spotlight. So with that, I will turn it over to Matt and Mike to launch us on another exciting game of Critter or Not.
Oh, thank you, Charlotte. That's a nice introduction, a nice way of closing out this 15th year. And for technical reasons, I'm going to be driving the bus here and the slide changing while Matt and I both comment and introduce these things to you. So let me share my screen.
Mike, are you going to be launching the polls too?
Well, I can do that, or if you want to do that. I didn't think about the fact that either one of us could. I thought that the person who was doing the slides had to, but that's not necessarily true, is it?
No, that's fine. I can launch the polls if you want.
All right, yeah, that'd be good. Okay, hold on a second here. Let's see. So hopefully everyone is now seeing a big screen with stenciled letters on it. And I will let Matt introduce the way that we play the game.
Okay, yes. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the final Plants, Pests, Pathogens webinar. So we will be playing Critter or Not. So you'll be offered 3 choices for each scenario. So either Critter, of insect, mite, spider, mollusk, or vertebrate animal origin. Pathogen, disease causing fungus, bacterium, virus, nematode, parasitic plant, etc. Or not. Saprobic or beneficial organism, environmental stress, cultural problem, normal plant structure, genetic or abnormality, etc. So each of these should fall into one of these categories. And as always, keep track of your score as we go along. There's no, this is just for fun. So we're going to all do our best. And really, it's also to kind of, test your skills and also show some really strange things that we get in over the year. So, and for groups, please designate a secretary to take the votes and record the majority opinion. And hopefully there's no arguments or, battles or anything like that amongst you all. So let's all have fun. And I guess we can get started.
So,
all right.
Yeah, this we didn't actually, well, we'll have to figure out who's going to introduce each scenario, I guess. But this, of course, is not a plant here as a background. This is siding, came from this month in Brunswick County. You see these multicolored patches here. And so the question is this a critter, a pathogen, or not?
I love seeing these the answers come in.
Yes, we can see the little bars moving up. They move relative to one another. We can also see how many folks have answered. So far, 76 have answered the poll. That's really good response. So
yeah, and we'll give it, I don't know, we've got a lot of them today. So should we give it a certain amount of time or a certain percentage?
Yeah, we pretty much should. We've got 21 different items that we're going to be presenting.
Yeah. So maybe once it's got to what, 75%, maybe 80%? What do y'all think? What do you think, Mike?
Well, here we got 100% pretty quickly. So I
No,
think maybe...
we're only 84 of 106 participants. So
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So all right. Well, we'll end the poll right now and for that. So just remember to pop on and make your decisions. If you're wanting to hold off on it, that's no problem either. All right, let's share the results. So we have 15% of people said it's critter, 44% say it's a pathogen, and 40% say not. Okay,
Is that showing up on people's screen, the result there? Because it's not showing up on mine.
Oh, really? Was it showing up on people's?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Good.
Yes, it was.
All right, great. Well, I just closed it though. So it said it looked like the majority said pathogen, then a fewer said not, and then fewer said critter. So, Mike, you want to reveal? So this is actually a critter. So this was actually a mud dauber nest from a wasp from mother that collected mud from different sites. And so the mud is different colors. In fact, when the person sent this in, I thought it might be a cocoon, but seeing from the photo, it's hard to tell what type of material. I asked them to kind of scrape it off and see whether it was mud or silk, because I thought it might be also a silken cocoon of some sort. But yeah, they opened it up, but there were spiders inside, and it was made of mud, so it was a mud dauber nest. So very beautiful mud dauber nest at that too. All right, Mike, I guess you can move on to the next one, and I will present it. All right, so this was found in a Japanese maple tree and sent to me by an agent in Buncombe County in October. What do we all think? And I will, let's see. Maybe I didn't share the results for the last time. Let's see. Okay, stop sharing. Let me close this. Let me back. Okay. Why is this not letting me? It's not letting me clear it for some reason.
Let's see if I just hit stop sharing because I had that option.
Okay, well, it wouldn't let me do that. Let's see. Okay. It's not letting me clear. Oh, well, there we
There you
go.
go. I
Has
had
that
an
been good?
option to relaunch the poll. So that's look
Okay.
for relaunch the poll.
All
Yeah,
right.
the 3 dots, it was kind of hidden.
Yeah,
Well, Charlotte, would you mind launching the polls then for
sure.
us? Okay, so we'll let you know when the time comes, and that might be better because it did not let me clear it, unfortunately. Okay, so we got we've got answers rolling in. We've got 44% of people participating. We're going to give this another, let's say, 20 seconds, 15 seconds. So get your answers in. Don't worry about being wrong. This is all fun. All right. Let's say when we get to 75%. Let me make sure that we get enough. So we're almost there. All right. Looks like
Right
we're
at
at 75%. Okay. All right. And okay. So looks like 71% of people said it was critter, 4% say it's a pathogen, and 25% say not. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing now and close that up. All right.
I
Mike?
wonder, I'm gonna share the result because again, I don't know why it's not flashing up on my screen when you share it, people
Huh.
seeing what the results are. But I will go ahead and I do have the power to reveal the answer.
Okay. So this is also a critter, well, a critter structure. This is the egg sac of a basilica orb weaver spider. So they actually stack these round egg sacs on top of each other. It looks like kind of like a string of pearls or something. And so it's one thing to keep in mind because they can be fairly common, and they leave these egg sacs in the bushes and trees and places to overwinter, like other orb weavers. And so you can see the spider here. There's a very nice photo by Katja Schultz and very nice egg sac from Anita Gould. Okay. On to the next one, I guess.
So here is a photograph taken from the base of a kalmia shrub in Avery County out in the mountains. And the agent submitting it was submitting it as an insect. But our question to you, is it actually a critter or not?
I love it. I love seeing the fighting between the bars. I wish you could all see this.
Looks like it kind of stabilized, and we have hit 75%. You know,
Oh,
though,
y'all
I
in.
think I wonder if it's for those who are sitting in groups and they have to come up with an agreement, maybe we need to give them just a little more time. Well, we don't really have time really because we've got so many.
Yeah.
So apologies to the people who are fighting among yourselves to
Yep.
try and come up with an answer.
Yeah, it looks like 75% comes in around 40 seconds. So you got, all right. So we have the poll being shared. So everybody sees that hopefully. So we've got 42% critter, 36% pathogen, and 22% not. So it's almost even. It's kind of a nice spread. So,
But in this case, the knots have it. The actual organism we're looking at here, these are the sporangia or the spore-producing structures of a slime mold. So it's not a pathogen. It lived its happy life as a plasmodium, oozing around in the leaf litter and engulfing bacteria and bits of organic matter. And when it came time to reproduce, it just oozed up onto the base of the plant and changed over into these beautiful sporangia. But in large numbers, they can look like some kind of insect eggs or something. If you were to look at them closely, so you can sort of see it in one of the pictures here. There's a little stalk on each one of these, and these would be kind of there's an outer covering there, and then the spore mass within. So this is a slime mold. Leocarpus fragilis is the likely species.
At first glance, to me, it almost looked like root initials, like you'll sometimes get on tomatoes or things. Yeah, so that was fascinating.
So a similar looking situation here. This is cantaloupe from Buncombe County and back in August. And the way it was described was out of about 15 cantaloupes in a home garden, this has happened to 2. They get regular watering, no fertilizers or pesticides or fungicides, and regular turning. They're placed off the ground with room for air to move under them. So, Critter?
Want to relaunch the poll?
Yes, please. And answers are coming in fastly and furiously. We have already hit 70.
Oh, yeah.
People are stepping it up. They're worried they're not going to get their answers in. This, which I like to see. We like to see the excitement about this.
Good to go with your gut reaction.
Yeah.
Don't think about it too much.
All right.
And
so
again, these are supposed to be tricky, so
full disclosure, some of these when they come in, we're not sure ourselves, and we have to work things out before we share them with you. So it doesn't usually, well, it doesn't always have an answer in 40 seconds. So I'm hoping that the results are visible on your screens, whereas Critter had 19%, Pathogen a little bit more than a majority, 55, and not at 26%. Well, this time the majority is correct. This is a pathogen. It's a fungus called Sclerotium rolfsii, responsible for a disease called southern blight or southern stem blight, because we usually see it on the stems of plants. It may be in the vegetable garden, it could be on tomatoes or okra or a number of vegetable plants, or also in the perennial bed, you can get it affecting the stems of the plants right at the soil line. This is very curious, though, because they mentioned that there was no contact with the ground, that air could move under them. But normally this would be a situation where you would have some kind of contact with the earth from which the fungus is infested, and it will grow up there on the plant parts, in this case, the fruit. Remarkably, in this situation, the interior of the melon was pretty much unaffected, but you can see it was pretty severely damaged on the outside there, which of course could lead to other secondary decay moving in. You see the hyphae of the fungus there, the mycelium growing there along the edge, and then the sclerotia starting out as little white pills that become more or less the size, shape, and color of a radish seed when they're mature.
And that's also in a new genus, maybe Athelia. Is that?
Well, yes. I guess I am still calling it sclerotium, but the now with the one fungus, one name, sclerotium was the name for the non-sexually reproducing versions phase of it, and Athelia rolfsii was the sexual stage. But now, for the last over 10 years, we've been supposed to be only using one name for each fungus, and I guess Athelia was the one that was officially chosen. So Athelia rolfsii.
I like the former genus anyway. Yep. Okay. All right. All right. Next one is from Craven County, September of 2023. I actually forget what plant this is from. I don't know if they even said. I'd have to look back.
I don't either, but yes, it was.
Let's see if you have it.
Let me look it up real quick here.
Are those turquoise things part of the critter or not? Or are they like berries that have dropped to the ground?
Those are fertilizer pellets.
Okay.
We'll give you that one.
Of a control release fertilizer. No, I can't find the kind of plant that it was.
Okay. Well, no worries. So,
But anyway, there was this spongy material here around the root of the plant. Launch it, critter or not.
Yes, and there's a question clarifying. This is that is the ground basically that we're seeing. It's kind of a strange orientation of the photo, but
and the inset on the left is an extreme close-up of kind of the spongy nature of the material or organism.
All right, people
Well,
a
if
little,
it's be a little
yeah,
slower.
a little slower. People a little unsure.
Just looking at a picture upside down help diagnose it ever?
Yeah,
Yeah, because you get more blood to your head.
If you're upside down, not the picture.
yeah. All right, it looks like we have 78%. So, yeah, it looks like 15% said critter, 38% said pathogen, and 46%, the majority of answers said not. And what
In
is
this
the
case,
answer?
the plurality has it. This is, in fact, just the old remains of an oasis cube. You may be more familiar with it as florist foam that was used to earlier in the propagation stage of whatever this plant was, and then it got potted up and maybe repotted up and eventually sold, planted, but that didn't decompose. It just sat there, and then the homeowner found it and wondered what it was. You could confuse it for, and I was unsure myself at first, there are one or two slime molds whose fruiting bodies are kind of spongy. And the clue there is that when you look at that close up, there are no spores in there. It's just the inert material of the oasis cube or the foam that would have been used to hold the, let's say, the stem and keep it moist during propagation. All right. Who's doing the setup on this one?
I guess that's me. Okay, so we've got a hazelnut or filbert from Buncombe County in April of 2023. So it looks like there's a couple of things going on here. And I will say that those two, the photo, what looks like one photo on the right is actually two photos, but showing different symptoms. You can see the line through there. Okay, Charlotte, if you want to throw that poll up. What do y'all think? I'm realizing now, Mike, this one might be a little bit more complex than a simple one answer, but we're going to give you what we found. Okay, how are we doing?
Does that mean that
We're
people should
almost
score
there.
themselves as correct in more than one category?
Well, we'll see. It
Would
may
you go
be
that
a
far?
we'll see. It may be a freebie, or we'll see. I think there's one thing that is not. So, what if you choose the one answer, then. But we are at 77%. So okay, good. We've got it sharing. So 26% of people say it's a critter, 41% say it's a pathogen, and 33% say not. Wow, we are really good at picking these to make it really confusing. So let's reveal the answer, I guess. So this is technically a critter. So really, the swelling was the most was the kind of one of the big symptoms, and in that swelling was actually a flathead borer in the family Buprestidae, and a Gryllus, which includes the emerald ash borer, but there are several species that feed on hazelnut. And so basically that swelling was probably a gall from where the larva was feeding in there, the plant was still growing and creating this callus tissue and this kind of swelling. But I wonder what those scars are that are going up and down going up and down the stem, and whether they kind of predispose the plants to being attacked by these insects. Now, a lot of these flathead borers on many of these Agrilis are kind of primary pests. They actually will attack healthy plants, and so they could be primarily just causing that swelling there. But there might have been some other factors going on. So that's where I'd say, Mike, I don't know, you didn't find any pathogens, did you? Or
I did not. So I would say if you answered either critter or not, just as long as you didn't answer pathogen here, you can give yourself the point.
Mhm.
So moving.
And we got a question
sorry,
say, does who presents the slide perhaps give away the category? No, we are doing this completely randomly. So I'll give you that hint.
well, alternation isn't randomness.
Oh, that's true. Yes, we are alternating.
It's systematic.
Yes, yes.
here is an Amelanchier from a nursery, a container nursery in Pitt County that was brought in July. It was actually, the concern had to do with things like the dieback and the defoliation. But what we're presenting to you today is a symptom that the grower actually knew the answer to, but maybe it would be a good thing to ask you if this is a critter or not. Talking, of course, about the visible change there to the bark and the wood of the branches. This is working pretty well with the competent driving of Charlotte on the launching the poles.
He saves the day, as always.
Oh, I saw a critter pull ahead just at the last minute there, just when we hit 75, 76. Now it's just inching up. So we have here the 46% critter, 26% pathogen, 29% not. Well, one of the clues here, so if you're asking questions, if you're observing this, one of the things that you would want to see was, or observe, was that these injuries are actually only on one side of the stem. And that is a clue that you may have hail injury, which was the case here. The sample was brought to us on the 10th of July, and they had had a historic hailstorm on the 9th of May this year. So they had a lot of hail injury. And you can see that it started to heal over, a lot of broken bark, those kind of elliptical shapes. And by the time the sample got to us, there was some callus tissue forming around those lesions. So I call them lesions, but injuries. So let us go to the next.
Okay, so this was sent to us, and this is a leaf from Cephalanthus, and it has these strange structures on the underside. So what do we got here? Critter or not? Uh, people are going hard on critter. Not to let that influence you or anything. All right. Looks like we've got a lot of people answered. The 92% of people said critter, 7% said pathogen, and 1% say not. Yeah, Savannah. Yeah, we're always trying to make you think, but I will say that everybody was spot on. So this was a critter. These are the eggs of an alderfly. This is a type of aquatic insect. And so they lay their eggs in masses like that. It's something I had to look up because I'm not very familiar with. They're not really a really common insect either. They're kind of really little Dobson flies, only about an inch long or so, a little less. And I only found my first ones a couple years ago to photograph, but I have seen them before. So these are insect eggs, and I'm assuming that's what everybody thought they were.
And interesting, of course, Cephalanthus, think about the habitat it likes to grow in.
Yep. That is button bush, right? So
like the one that, I didn't realize this, but it appears that there's a whole line of those along the between the walkway and the driveway, whatever, and the mill pond there at the state fairgrounds. Nice to visit there earlier in the year. Okay. All right. Next, we have peach. So the Perquimans County in May. So the may be a kind of a helpful hint here. And there are yellow sort of spots all over these otherwise green looking leaves. Critter or not. We're at 75%. 7. All right. We have 20% critter, 42% pathogen, and 38% not. So what is this? Well, it turns out, under closer examination, that it's pollen. So apparently water dripping from blossoms carried pollen down and just left globs on the leaves. Of course, not pathogenic and not a critter. Was there anything you wanted to add to this, Matt?
No, it was just it was a little tough from the photos to tell what was going on. Bees will sometimes they'll feed on pollen and nectar, and then they'll kind of poop out little kind of yellow pollen balls, and like sometimes it gets on surfaces. In fact, there was a scare in Utah where they thought it was some kind of biological warfare or something on school buses, but it was actually just bees pooping on them. But this is almost certainly just the water droplets dropping onto there, and then once it's dried, that ball of pollen just sits there. Oh, and I see somebody. But one of the leaves at the bottom is eaten up by something. So we're mainly focusing on kind of you could tell usually what the thing we're focusing on. So lots of trees have lots of problems. So we're mainly focusing on what we're showing in close-ups and whatnot.
And here, if the commenter was asking about this here, that does appear to be, it could be shot hole there. So some kind of, the Prunus, genus Prunus will often do that, where there's some kind of an infection that will form an abscission layer around it, and then the holes drop out, or the spots drop out, leaving the shot hole appearance.
Yeah, I'm sure we've had shot hole on critter or not before, and it may come up in the future again too.
Who knows?
All right.
Oops. I
No.
I clicked too many times. You didn't see that.
Nobody saw that. Nobody saw
I
that.
went too fast. So
All
this is this is a really interesting one here. Because the write-up was curious what type of leaf spot fungus this is on water oak. I suspect it is sporulating on the underside. Leaves are dropping early. The client is legally blind, so we don't know if this issue is recurring or when it started. She felt the unusual hairs on the leaves underside. They dark and stiff like beard stubble.
Ooh, so critter or not? Nobody saw the answer.
No. Maybe that was a red herring. Maybe we intended to show a false answer.
Oh man, that would be so diabolical if we do that in the future. Accidentally. Oh shoot, we accidentally skipped forward. Okay. Don't trust anyone. That's the lesson of this game anyway.
I didn't see it. I was looking at the comment in the chat from Hannah that says her toddler had picked the right answer, a pathogen. So we might have a budding plant pathologist joining us here, and he was right.
So, as you can see, the slightly biased results, 20% critter, 68% pathogen, 12% not. Well, yes, this is a very interesting case where, and if I'm not mistaken, this is the first pathogen that we've had here. No, we did have the Rolfsii on the melon. So yeah, this is actually one of the Crenartium rusts, and I cannot, and I'm not sure if anybody could, without maybe molecular work, tell you which particular one, but a good guess would be fusiform rust, which alternates between pine trees and oaks, where on the oaks, it just causes these minor like bristle-like spore-producing structures called telia there on the underside. But those spores produced there are capable of infecting the pines and actually can do quite a bit of damage by causing galls on them, particularly in the case of fusiform rust, which we talked about on plants, pests, and pathogens before. That, though, is not really, I can't even guarantee that it's causing the leaf spots here, maybe the small yellow ones around them, but the bigger issue of what killed the limbs on this tree is something else. So I had recommended that they contact an arborist about that. Water oaks, though, are not very long-lived trees. So this one may be reaching where the point where it's going to need to be removed, but an arborist would have to tell you that. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, your turn back. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This next one is a Nyssa or black gum or Tupelo from Washington, D.C. We got photos of from June of 2023. So our question, as always, is critter or not?
And while you're thinking about that, if you have not seen it, but there is close to the U.S. Capitol building, this kind of arboretum or a grassy area with trees, and you can see there's a label on that. So something next time you are in D.C. to maybe check out if you haven't. And we occasionally get photographs sent from the one of the folks who is responsible for the Capitol grounds up there. Not lately, but this one was back in June.
All right, we're just about there. Okay, well, doesn't look like any more answers are coming in. So, all right, so we have 17% critter, 12% pathogen, and the majority by far, 71% not. So, you were all right. Yeah, or a lot of you.
Yes, yeah, the answer here, it turned out when they first submitted the images that they're actually suspecting herbicide injury, but what they mentioned applying wouldn't have been anything that would have done it. I did refer to Dr. Joe Neal, of course, our herbicide expert in the horticulture science department, who suspected the synthetic auxin herbicide, and then when she went back and looked at her records, I guess they discovered that triclopyr was, excuse me, was applied around there. Although there's quite a few broadleaf weeds here. Not sure how I make those two facts work together, but this would be damage from herbicide, and the tree will likely grow out of it. Excuse me. This sample from Wake County on an Oakland holly, one of the hybrid hollies in July. The submitter thought it looked like a fungus and hosed it off and stated, I like this, that they were reluctant to use just any, and I won't mention the big box store product. So they wanted to get a diagnosis before they did any kind of treatment. And we always laud that here at the Plant Disease and Insect Clinic. But the question for you is critter or not? All right, answers, all right, now 70%. So make your final choices before, oh wow, we are now at 78. So I think we can go ahead and see the results. 48% critter, 36% pathogen, 15% not. All right, we kind of got you on this one. This is a not. So those 15% of you had the correct answer. The interesting thing here is what these are the dried old blossoms of the holly. It's still a head scratcher for me as to why they just died and hung on there, because my understanding is that this is one of the hollies that's supposed to not need a pollinator in order to set fruit. So something happened that caused these flowers to die rather than set fruit, and they just hung on there still, and in July were visible. So no treatment needed for this. Moving along.
Okay, so now we have a rose from Duval County, Florida, and you can see this is on the stem. And is this a critter or not?
So I see no one in the chat cried foul that we're using something from Florida here in the
We gotta take them where we can get them.
Yeah,
All
and I
right.
see in Florida they grow their roses in cardboard boxes.
All right, so we're past 75%. Looks like we're pretty good. Okay, so we have 79% critter, 7% pathogen, and 13% not. Okay, so let's see what it is. All right, yep. So majority of people got it. It is a critter as far as I can tell. You can see the frayed kind of material coming out of each of these little kind of punctures or these structures. They're really just it's oviposition scars from some sort of insect. Of course, in Florida, it could be a lot of things, but typically when we talk about oviposition scars like this, so this is where the female insect uses her blade-like ovipositor to cut into the plant material to lay an egg, then pulls it out, it leaves a little fraying, and then keeps moving up the stem or down the stem or whatever. And you can see some of the groups near the bottom are close together. That's probably where it started. And typically the types of insects that will do this are crickets and katydids, or tree hoppers, or certain types of hoppers like leaf hoppers and such that do that. Cicadas are also related to those hoppers too, but I would imagine this is maybe some kind of cricket or perhaps a tree hopper, but I'm not exactly sure. I couldn't find a good evidence, and it's Florida, so anything can happen, I guess.
Right. Next, we have this from Union County in July of 2023. There was not an indication of, unless it's in the correspondence here and not in the sample entry. Let's see. Yeah, as to, let's see. No, it doesn't say what actual substrate or surface this is on, but the text in the original submission was, and don't be biased by the word, the use of the word here, but they say, since first seeing this, it has not grown in size, just want to know what type of critter created it and how long until it matures. Thank you. The critter is about 15 feet from a built-in pool that's not saltwater. Properties here are all a couple of acres. Neighbor next door has a pond, and another next door is beside 12 Mile Creek. It's been a week and it's not grown or puffed up any. I'm so curious about it. It's so cool and pretty. So now we ask you, critter or not? It's funny that there's 12 Mile Creek. I grew up close to 9 Mile Creek. That's 1,000 miles from here.
That reminds me of a funny internet thing. I wonder if somebody's got to find what the longest mile named creek is out there.
Yeah, really. There's no 100 Mile Creeks out there. Right?
All right. So that was a quick one. A lot of people answered very quickly.
Yes.
So yeah, go ahead, Mike.
64% say critters, 7 pathogen, and 29% not. This is a very cool one. And yeah, they were right. It was critter.
Yep. I mean, that might have been a giveaway too. But both these critters, actually, this is funny. So these are dobsonfly or fish fly eggs. So they lay these egg masses on places that are overhanging water typically. So their larvae, when they hatch from the egg, they can drop right down in the water. And these are going to be these large insects. These dobsonflies, the males have these really long tusk-like mandibles. But this is a female I show here, and these insects are several inches long. They can get about 4 inches long, and their egg masses, when I've kayaked or canoed down a river, you can see them on rock faces like that or under branches that are over water. And sometimes you just see the remnant ring. Once they're hatched and it's weathered away, you just see kind of a ring of that white substance. So, yep, these are another megalopteran egg mass. So we've had 2 megalopteran egg slides. Who knows if we'll have any more?
Is that zigzag typically there, or is that just kind of this situation?
I've seen that's in some of them. It's not always the case. Sometimes they don't make it like that. It might be species specific. I don't know if who knows what species create the specific types of egg masses, because we have a few genera of dobs and flies and fish flies around here. So I'm not exactly sure which one creates this. So yeah. Is this a first? Is this a first on Critter or Not? This one, a video?
It could be. So do you want me to just play it, or do you want to set it up?
Well, I think, did I set? Oh yeah, I'm setting it up, I guess. So this was sent to us. This video was sent to us from Surrey County in February, out in the woods, kind of out in kind of area. Not really, I don't know exactly the situation, but if you want to play the video,
If
I'm
we
gonna have to
can.
hit the play button down at the bottom, maybe.
Let's see.
There's a play button that pops up at the bottom of the video.
Oh, I don't see it. But,
Oh, there you go. All right, so walking around. I don't know. I guess we don't have the sound. Sounds. You probably don't want that.
yeah, it sounds kind of goopy.
Goopy.
And the crunching of the leaves. It's
All right. Ooh, fun. Sure, you all want to be out there doing that. Yep. Can you make the sound effects, Mike? Okay. No.
oh, it's over. Sorry, I would have, but
The appropriate sound effect is gross.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see what you all think it is, critter or not. One giant critter. Giant spit.
yeah, this could be a segue to our next successful show called extraterrestrial or terrestrial.
Okay.
Be some giant spittle bug.
Yeah. Reminds me of some of the Stranger Things. Somebody said, "Yep, it is pretty strange," and it was very strange. And we couldn't help exactly, but it looks like we've got enough people now. So we have 4% say critter, 25% say pathogen, and 71% say not. And drum roll, please.
I don't know who was it that helped us figure this out, because we certainly didn't.
They somebody on their side found it out, but from my understanding, a neighbor dumped aluminum sulfate. More specifically, the white slime is the leftover precipitate when using aluminum sulfate to clean well water. So in general, all this is non-toxic, as is used as a flocculant for drinking water. Just shouldn't have been dumped like this. So yeah, it is those who said not is correct. It is not a pathogen or a critter. Although I would be very scared if there was some kind of critter that would be able to produce that much slime and whatnot. So yeah, that was a weird one, definitely, and a head scratcher. But luckily we got an answer, because this one would have kept us up at night if not.
Yeah. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to move on to the next slide, which is this. So a mulch bed from Chatham County. I don't include the pictures of the tree or trees that were in there, but you can see this close-up shot of something that they had observed there on the surface of the mulch, and we'll just let you decide if it's a critter or not. All right, wow, this one's really neck and neck, I think. This reminds me of those things where you're doing the skee balls at the fair, and then your little character advances depending on how many points you're getting on it. Now it's starting to get more clarity. Not is pulling ahead with now 78%. So I think we can go ahead and share these. So yeah, that's tight.
Super tight one.
30 and 30 for critter and pathogen respectively, and 40% said not. Congratulations to the 40%, because this is neither a critter nor a pathogen. It is a fungus though. It's one of the bird's nest fungi, and it produces these fruiting bodies, small in the mulch, one of what we would call maybe our nuisance fungi that you get in mulch. It's just a sap robe, so breaking down the wood and the chips there and not causing any damage to the plants. They're kind of cute. They call them bird's nest fungi for obvious reasons. Once they open up, it looks like a little nest, and the spore balls or peridioles in there are nestling in there like little eggs. Some of them, depending on which one you're looking at, will have a little thread sort of like structure attaching it or attached to it. So I'm not sure what species this is, but a nice example of a bird's nest fungus.
Okay, Mike, do you know how many we have left?
Let me see.
Well, while you're counting, I'm going to introduce this one. This is on Arborvitae from Rockingham County in October, and we will see.
Yeah, since I've got my bolas at the end of it, I don't know. Let me subtract in my head 5 divided by 2 because there's 2 slides for each one. So there are probably about 7 left.
Okay. Well, I think people are having fun, so we got plenty of time, I think. Okay, so we got answers coming in not super fast and furious. I think people are thinking about this one. All right. This is also another one that's kind of tight. Okay, looks like we have enough people. So we have 26% saying critter, 43% saying pathogen, and 31% saying not. So few people are going to be disappointed. This is a critter. So these are actually, this is why I tell you when we talk about bagworms that rather than just snapping off the bags, you should cut them with a razor, because that little tie off, that little silk tie off is super strong. And what happens is it girdles the branch. It remains there. It basically strangles the branch. And you can see one of the really interesting things is that the branch is thicker near the tip than it is below the girdling point. And that is because liquids can flow in, but when they try and flow back, they can't. And so you basically get this stem that's then this twig that's dead. You get the browning, and so sometimes people see this and they think, oh, it's a gall or some kind of canker or whatever. But if you were to cut that open, you would find a little silk ring in there, and that's just how strong silk is. So remember, if you got bagworms, these could be old ones that people didn't notice and they weathered away, but the silk string around it is not going to weather away.
Very cool, very cool. So our next situation, we don't see this host very often in submitted to the clinic, but a metasequoia, a dawn redwood, Randolph County in July of this year, that had some of the needles, just individual ones and portions of them, turning necrotic like this. Critter or not? This one, wow, people took a long time to even start on this one. I think this is going to be a cause for trauma.
That's the best thing a game show can do, is cause trauma.
Once they got their toe in the water, then they kind of jumped in. So we now have 79%. And
this one was, yeah. Go ahead with the.
Yeah. Yes, 15% critter, 45% pathogen, and 39% not. Well, I have to admit that when I first thought it, I was all, well, I don't want to say excited, but I thought maybe pathogen. Turns out, though, upon close inspection, that it was a critter.
Yep. This one was also new to me. I did not suspect it to be a critter that was doing all that browning, causing that browning. And even when I saw this chewing and whatnot, I couldn't believe what it would be. I thought, it might have been leaf beetle. There's a few groups that might feed on conifers and everything. I did not jump to Japanese beetles, but it had been a big year for Japanese beetles. And I actually found a blog post from Ohio State, from Joe Boggs, who does great stuff up there. He had the similar damage and had observed the Japanese beetles on that. So that was a new one for me. Japanese beetles do feed on a lot of different types of hosts, even conifers, but it was just so uncommon and just such a strange one. We did not know at all until we found those clues. So yay for people posting photos online of things and confirming diagnoses, because that definitely does help.
Very good.
Okay, next one. Okay, next one. This is a hickory from Wake County in October 2023. Critter or not? Hopefully I don't have to point out what you should be looking at, but.
And the astute participant today will have noticed that these are all from this year. We had just a banner year for things coming in that we said to one another, hey, this would be good for critter or not. And we built up a list that we then exploited.
Okay, another tight one. Oof. It's a slow one too. People are really looking at this one hard. All right. Wow. Just go with your gut. Might be wrong, but it's still.
Now you made me hungry by saying gut.
Yeah, that's true. Well, let's see where are we at. We're at 73%. I was gonna say hungry. This might also happen on a related nut tree too. Okay. All right. Well, I guess it's stopping in time. We didn't even get to 75%, but that's all right.
We had gone up to 74, then it went down to 73. So I thought maybe we better stop while we're here.
People retracting their answers. They're like, "Oh my god!" So
no, but it's a percentage. So maybe it's some people jumping in. The word is spreading that wow, we got a great program here, and then more people are joining.
Well, regardless, so we've got 22% critter, 41% pathogen, 37% not. So it is actually a critter. So you may not see them on there. This was actually my photos when I was walking around the neighborhood. So you'll see those yellow patches. You may not see the critter, but just like on pecans, this is black pecan aphid damage. So these aphids, these very beautiful aphids, there's a winged one, and then above it is the wingless, the nymph. And these feed on the undersides of leaves, also on pecans, obviously, but hickories are, pecans are a type of hickory in the genus Caria. And the feeding from these aphids causes yellow spots, in intraveinal chlorosis, basically, and it's usually pretty diagnostic. It does look like, I would say, a disease on some other plants like downy mildews and whatnot, but hickories, this would be hickories and pecans, it would be this aphid causing that damage. So it is a critter.
Next up, we have a similar looking symptom, some photographs submitted to us from Orange County, this time though on beach, with some chlorotic blotchiness tending to be limited by the veins. And you can see both of you here on the left with an incident light, I'll say, and then the view on the right with light passing through. And the question for you is critter or not? Yeah, getting close to the end of our critter or not session here.
Another one neck and neck. It seems like we've got some good ones this time.
$74. So
there.
close, so close.
Somebody answer. It's all right. All right. Maybe we should just end it there for now.
75.
Okay.
No, we made it. So we have 39% critter, 33% pathogen, and 28% not. Okay, well, thank you for sticking to your guns there, because this, in fact, is a likely critter. We didn't actually see we didn't catch it red what would it be?
Red tar seed.
Red tarsal, yes, but some things point toward this being woolly beach aphid, and I'll let Matt take it from there.
Yeah, you know, I've seen this a lot. I didn't really, you know, I figured it might be something like that. You know, Mike may mention a disease that we're on the lookout for. But basically we got in a similar sample, not this one, and I was able to investigate, find some shed skins of some aphids, find a couple of specimens, mount them. It's a strange one that basically is native. It's a woolly aphid that lives in the curls on the edges of the leaves, like a lot of on elms and other trees. It's not going to cause harm to the tree overall, and it's a native pest. So just be aware. But I don't know, Mike, if you want to mention.
Yeah, I didn't include any slides of it. We have talked about it though before, the beech leaf disease. So there, we wouldn't see the curling on the edges like this. And also those affected areas would be thickened and they'd actually be darker looking when the light is passing through them rather than lighter looking than the rest of the leaf. So that would be two important differences. And we do not yet have it in North Carolina, but it is in Virginia. So far, if you see something like this, your first suspicions are going to be either possibly the aphid, but even more likely the Iranium galls, small mite galls, causing a thickening of the leaf. But yeah, we'll have to keep an eye out for the beech leaf disease as well. All right. And
Okay.
the last one, whose setup is this?
I forget, did I do the last one? Or I've forgotten?
No, I did the last one. This one's yours.
Okay. So this is 9-bark, which is, what's the genus, Mike? It's
Physocarpus.
Physocarpus. Okay, this is from Jackson County in October of 2023. So is this a critter or not?
And so yeah, the obviously the picture on the far right there is an extreme close-up of one of those dead leaves there. So I'm sure everybody figured that out.
All right, looks like we're at about the right time. All right, so we have 56% said critter, 27% said pathogen, and 17% said not. So,
well, yeah, pathogen. Now the question though, what pathogen? And it's maybe a little bit unfair because it turns out that this is the first time, as far as we know, that it was reported in North Carolina, although I knew it very well growing up in Minnesota. Anybody know what this is? One of the hints is that it's not just the blackening and the little masked spherical structures, but also you notice there's some white patches here. But this is, all right, here's the close-up. So the white patches, here are the chains of conidia or spores that would blow around in the wind, and the close-up of the black under the microscope bearing a different kind of spore. This is a powdery mildew. So Potosphaera physocarpi. You may also see it as instead of as its own species as being a variety or within a different species. But I'm going to call it here Potosphaera physocarpi. It is specific to Physocarpus, not going to affect other plants in the landscape, and it can form these really dense mats of the ascocarps, if you will, chasmathecia, different terms that are used, but fruiting bodies of the fungus there. It can also get on the inflorescences. Yeah, so
how many more do we?
So you have it. No, that's it.
Oh.
Yeah, that was the last one. So tally up your scores. Oh no, before you do, or as you do, let me just point out that most of our powdery mildews, so this kind of segues into bolo here. Most of our powdery mildews don't have that kind of density on the chasmathecia. You'll see something like this, where you'll see the possibly a patchiness of the white remaining, but then in the fall, the Casmathecia forming the tiny little pepper grains scattered in among the rest of the fungus. And this particular one, if you zoom in on it, it has a lot of curved-tipped appendages on it. This is a Sawadia polyphyta. This was also a first report for North Carolina, but from last year on Japanese maple. It's been found recently on Japanese maple in different states. Kind of an interesting powdery mildew, but a more typical looking one as far as what you would see with the naked eye. So with your tallies, Charlotte, if you could launch the A through E poll, please. So select A if you had 0 to 5 correct, B 6 to 10, C 11 to 15, D 16 to 20, and select E if you had all 21 of them correct. Now, just for the statisticians in the group, to do better than random guessing, you should have at least 7 or at least 8 to do better than randomness. But we realized that these were pretty tricky. They again, it was a really good year for some of these things coming in that we said, yeah, this would be good for grit or not.
Yeah, and again, we're not immune to being tricked by these things too. So we want to let you know not to feel bad if you get some wrong. These are things that we kind of have a gut instinct for, but then we have to do some research or get the specimens in, things like that, to really confirm and figure it out.
And we only give you, 45 seconds. Whereas we sometimes take days on these things.
So, okay. How are we doing?
I guess.
Seem to be stalled at around 63% reporting
okay.
in.
Well,
and share the results.
Great. Well, it's nice, almost normal distribution. So, most people got 6 to 15 correct. A few people with the 16 to 20, and a few people with 0 to 5. I guess nobody got all of them correct, but that's good, because if you did, then you probably should be doing all the work for us here and coming to the lab.
You're hired.
Yeah. You're hired. So, but cool, very good. Well, hope you all enjoyed it. We really enjoy doing this, and I think we're going to continue doing it years to come. Collecting all these things that we see. We always, me and Mike just we see a sample come in, we both look at each other, and they're like, "Yeah, critter or not, let's do it." So, so hopefully you liked all these, and we really enjoy presenting it. So, from there, now we're going to go into some bolos real quick.
Yeah, do you want me to just roll with mine since I've got the
PowerPoint you might
up here? Okay. And I kind of had a segue into it using that last slide with the powdery mildew on the Japanese maple. So something that you might want to be looking out for. But and I mentioned powdery mildews, but start with the flowers and perennials. Of course, this bolo season has to cover us between now and late February, when we resume with the program after the winter break. And in that time period, you, on multiple species, of course, this time of year, are going to be seeing the last hurrah for both the rust diseases and the powdery mildews. You might see some things like on ironweed or powdery mildew on a few hosts. And we'll start to see our first cold injury coming in as we start getting the first frost. And a few people were commenting that there was a little bit of frost this morning in some areas. Liriope, there's the anthracnose on the leaf tips that we'll be seeing, and that's why you give these things their winter haircut, so that you reduce the amount that'll carry over into the next year. And you can also see, if you're seeing the blades die all the way, it may be that they've got a fusarium crown rot there, which is doing a number. So you might see something like this, although you wouldn't necessarily know that it's not a Phytophthora crown rot. In the pansies, which will be going into the landscapes, or are going to the landscapes now, we always want to be on the lookout for black root rot when we're buying our transplants, make sure those roots are nice and white and healthy. But once they get into the landscape, even before, they can also get other problems like Pythium root rot and Phytophthora root and crown rot, even into some fairly cold months of the year. And as things start to warm up, we get the warmer, wetter weather toward the end of winter, we may be we will be seeing botrytis blight on pansies as well. It tends to start on the blossoms and then can go from there, because it prefers senescent tissue, or tissue in senescence. Speaking of senescence, the natural process of leaf drop will be going on as the color change has already started. And it's good to remind folks that this happens with conifers too. So your pines may be dropping needles at this time, and your arborvitaes may be having the oldest sprays of needles turning orange, then brown, and dropping off. But that's what happens this time of year. It's a natural process. This tree is still there next to the parking deck, and it's a beautiful specimen. And this is what it looked like since last year. I think it was last year, maybe not, maybe 2 years. No, last year. More on the trees and shrubs. Many hosts, of course, we always have to be on the lookout for Phytophthora and armillaria root rots. Not that the fungi or the fungus-like organism and the fungus respectively are active necessarily, but the damage can show up any time of year. You can see here looking under the bark for the evidence of armillaria on that stump. And when people start noticing their privets, because it's one of the few things that still has leaves on them that are green, you may see some of the Cercospora leaf spot, a couple different fungi that can do that. And it's pictured here, not really a serious issue. A little bit more dramatic is what can happen. Well, internal browning, of course, we talked about there with the arborvitae and some of its relatives. And on the spruce there, folks up in the mountains may be seeing some rhizosphere needle cast where you get the older needles dropping off, especially on the lower branches like this. That's from a fungal infection. There's a close-up of some of that. You can see how it's individual needles that are being affected. A little bit more on the tree or shrubs. Boxwood blight, we've got to be aware of and looking for at any time of year. And didn't seem to have much of it this year. Boxwood stem canker, though, is another one that kill individual branches this way, although it's not the only thing that can do that. And then, of course, below ground problems on boxwood, such as root rot and nematodes, including root knot nematodes. But also with boxwoods, we, when the holiday wreath season starts, some of those are made of boxwood sprigs, and you can actually get boxwood blight coming in on those. So another little place to be on the lookout. Entomosporium leaf spot, of course, a perennial issue on our susceptible cultivars of Indian hawthorn. And with roses, yep, always looking out for rosette, and you may even see some collapse from armillaria root rot at this point. Black knot, once the black cherries and plums especially are bare in the wintertime, we'll see the large growths on these twigs, which is a fungal infection disease called black knot. And also when leaves are off on especially our smooth barked trees and shrubs, we'll be seeing some things like septibasidium, or the felt fungus associated with scale insect colonies, and wildlife damage such as sapsucker injury and voles underground or at the base of the leaflet at the ground line. In the vegetable garden, of course, not too much growing there over the winter, but for the things that are, we want to be on the lookout for black rot, a bacterial disease of our crucifers. Here's a classic symptom of it with these sort of V-shaped yellowing lesions on the edge of the leaf. Sclerotinia stem rot, here shown on this. I believe these were collards here. And you can see not only the symptoms of the rot, but here's the sign of the pathogen, white kind of cottony mycelium growing there. You may also see the black sclerosiform. And foliar disease, fungal disease of turnip called white spot. As well as a Cercospora leaf spot on Swiss chard beet and spinach. But I believe this one, yeah, is the white spot of turnip, if I'm not mistaken. And be on the lookout for your soil test results. So hopefully you have sent those in. Remember that there is a fee for the peak season, and because you want especially your liming recommendations, your fertilizer recommendations, to be ready for the vegetable garden. We're making adjustments needed this fall to have a happy vegetable gardening season in 2024. And then finally, the winter weeds, of course, which may be popping up there in the vegetable garden. Oh, and keep an eye for seed catalogs. Always a joy to see in the winter months. Any more pathogen or disease bolos, as well as some pest bolos, are available for your perusal on those long winter nights on our website. Follow the link to bolos in the menu on the left.
All right, thanks, Mike. All right, now I'll share a few arthropods real quick. So this is our, like Mike mentioned, the end of the year kind of session. So these are late fall through winter up until February or so. So one of the things you can keep on the lookout for are the fall cankerworms out there. We typically, I say about around Thanksgiving is when you see the activity. Sometimes these are wingless female moths that crawl up trees from when they emerge from the soil after a long season since the spring when they were little inchworms. And the males are fully winged and they're going to fly and mate with the females that will then lay a batch of eggs on plants. And these will hatch in the spring as little green inchworms. There are also a lot of winter insects out. There are insects that are out and about even in the cold temperatures. In fact, these winter crane flies you may see coming to porch lights, they are only really active in the fall and winter, as their name implies. Their larvae feed on detritus and compost, things like that. You may see springtails, and when they're on snow, they call them snow fleas. You'll see these little tiny insects, although springtails are now considered non-insect hexapods. And there are things like roll-winged stoneflies and a few types of stoneflies that really only come out in the cool weather. Now, if you're bringing firewood in from outside and to burn, and you leave it on a pile somewhere in your house, especially if you collect it when it's after it's gotten cold, you bring it inside. Once the wood warms up, some of the insects inside may think that it's actually spring, and they will get confused and develop and then emerge out in the home. So if you have wood-boring beetles or wasps, sometimes some of these insects living in dead or in wood, they will emerge and be a nuisance sometimes. So if you've got a weird thing in your house and you're not sure where it is from, check the firewood. You may also see sawdust underneath the pile of firewood as showing activity of the insects inside. Now, another piece of firewood, future firewood, I guess, is Christmas trees. When you cut down the tree, the insects and some of the things are on there. Hopefully it's not squirrels or big critters, but you will get little tiny, little small insects on Christmas trees. As the trees are still fresh, they're going to be still a little happy and you may not see them. As the tree starts to dry out a bit, the insects are going to be unhappy and they're going to start to crawl away. And so you sometimes see these mass migrations of aphids. And the Cinera, the giant conifer aphids, are very large for aphids. I'm not going to say they're huge, but they're much bigger than a typical aphid, typically brown or black in color. They're harmless, but again, they're coming from the Christmas tree. There will be also household invaders right now. So as it's cooling down, we're going to start to see mass influxes of stink bugs or ladybugs or kudzu bugs or box elder bugs. Spiders and cockroaches may be coming indoors a little bit more, but they're going to kind of wind down over the season. And the ones that are coming in to hibernate, you're going to see a major influx now. And then in the spring, you'll see a major activity when they're waking up and leaving. But between then, they'll probably be hibernating and not being a nuisance. And then, of course, there's some opportunistic activity out there. So there's some insects that overwinter as adults. They're kind of hanging around, kind of in a state of kind of, sleepiness. But if a warm day comes about, they're not going to waste that time and they're going to come out and become active. So you will see some flies, especially, but other insects that seem to come out of nowhere. Even mosquitoes can kind of wake up over the winter when it's a little warmer. But we also see fruit flies and some blowflies coming out in those cooler months. So that's all I have for now. And we'll turn it over to Charlotte and Caroline.
All right, great. Thank you, Matt and Mike. Lots of awesome compliments coming into the chat for that episode. We appreciate it. And I was thinking, boy, here's where technology has come a long way in 15 years, that we can be all across the state and we can be answering these questions and seeing the results just like that. So that's really fun. Okay. Now it's my turn to take us through this month's resource spotlight. And so for this month, I want to make sure that you know how to find all the plants, pests, and pathogens resources that we have for you and our goal is to make it easy for you to find them. So we have 15 years of recordings of plants, pests, and pathogens for you to take advantage of, and it is all on the EMG internet. So the key to finding the most recent plants, pests, and pathogens recordings is to log on to the EMG internet and then make sure that you choose North Carolina, the North Carolina page. When most of us log in, we land on our county homepage. So here, for example, I'm on the Alamance County page. But when I want to find statewide resources like plants, pests, and pathogens, I've got to go to North Carolina. So once I choose the North Carolina page, scroll down in the menu to the section called Program Support. And then underneath Program Support, there is a tab for plants, pests, and pathogens. Right, when that opens up, you see this page. And here you have the 2023 season recordings and last year's 2022 season. So say I wanted to look back at this season, I click on 2023, and it brings up a page like this. This is just the beginning of the list of 2023 episodes. You can see it starts with February because that's when our plants, pests, and pathogens season begins. But say I was interested in looking at this episode from March on designing with edible crops. Here we have two links right there for you. The first is going to take you directly to the recording, which is on YouTube. So here, YouTube will pop right up and take you to that recording. But what I really want you to see is that below the recording, so here's the bottom of the recording, you have the YouTube description. And this section has a lot of great information. I want to call your attention to this part. What we have done is we've gone through the recordings of plants, pests, and pathogens, and we have indicated the exact times that different segments begin. And these are called timestamps. So here's a bigger view for you to see. So say I wanted to go and review Mike Munster's Be on the Lookout for March. I could click on this timestamp that says 54:14. That means that 54 minutes and 14 seconds into the presentation is where Mike starts his bolos. So I click on that number and it goes right to that spot of the video. So down here at the bottom, you can see it jumped right to 54 minutes. So I hope that's helpful to you in when you want to find something specific. Now, if we go back to that list of 2023 recordings, say I've watched the video on designing with edible crops, well, I might want to have a list of all the resources that were mentioned. So this link, resources from the webinar, is going to open a Google document. And this Google document, this is just a quick screenshot of that March episode. It has all the live links to the resources for you. So I hope that was also helpful for you. But what if you're looking for an episode that is prior to 2022? That's when you're going to choose the older recordings section, and you're going to pick the Plants, Pests, and Pathogens YouTube playlist. This is what our YouTube playlist looks like. And this is where episodes are posted once we have completed a very important step. North Carolina or NC State requires that when videos are made available to the public, they must have subtitles that make the recordings accessible to all. Now, when we upload a video to YouTube, YouTube does automatically generate subtitles, but given the nature of plants, pests, and pathogens and all the scientific names that we use, often YouTube gets a lot of the words wrong. So what that requires is that we manually go in and carefully correct the subtitles. And this is a very time-consuming process, but necessary. Once those subtitles are corrected, the more recent episodes of Plants, Pests, and Pathogens get uploaded to YouTube. And this is where a very well-deserved thank you comes in. This past year, 3 fearless Master Gardener volunteers have been editing subtitles for Plants, Pests, and Pathogens episodes. So they have been working behind the scenes to help make these episodes ready to get uploaded to YouTube. So very special thank you to Martha Anderson in Haywood County, Amanda Frick-Kaiser in Burke, and Michelle Lemereau in Forsyth County. Thank you very much for all the time you have put in to make those subtitles ready. Now, this is also a plug for more help. If editing subtitles sounds like something that you would like to do, reach out to your county agent to get their permission to work on a statewide project. And then consider these things. A strong, reliable internet connection is necessary for this job. You're on YouTube and it's refreshing very often, so you need a good internet connection to do this job. And it's very helpful to have excellent spelling and grammar skills, so you can put those to use. Thanks again to those ladies for helping us with this project. All right. Now time for Master Gardener program announcements. All right, so the Extension Gardener Plant Toolbox has got a couple of new features that they wanted to make us aware of. They have added tags related to therapeutic horticulture. So tags are keywords that you can type into the search bar on the Plant Toolbox. And when you do that, you get a list of plants that apply. So for instance, they've added this tag TH-smell, which means therapeutic horticulture, plants that have great qualities for scent if you're adding plants for a therapeutic horticulture garden. So that's a new feature to check out. And also they have added a new page in their help section. So this is a page that is explaining horticultural plant nomenclature. And this is how plants are named, what is meant by a cultivar, and how trade names are incorporated. So it helps us understand how plants get their names and what's meant by that. Breaking news, an update to the EMG brand guidelines is ready. This includes service marks, which is the Extension Master Gardener name itself, logos, the watering can icon, and the tagline, Learn, Grow, Share. These guidelines explain how to correctly use all of these brand components when you are printing something, putting it on a website or on signage, etc. So we're going to be hosting a webinar on November 2nd to tell you about the updates and to give you marketing resources. So we have got templates for you to use, and we have all the downloadable logos for you to use. So you can take a look at the brand guidelines, the updates before the webinar. The link is on the EMG internet. And if you have questions, we're asking that you submit them before the webinar through a Google form, and we will address the questions during that webinar. And our next Learn, Grow, Share Showcase webinar is coming up on November 29th. This is the webinar series that celebrates our work as extension educators, and it gives us the opportunity to share ideas with one another. So these are webinars that feature presentations by Master Gardener volunteers and extension agents that have been involved in the projects. November 29th, we will learn about the Nature at Home Yard Certification Program that's been offered in New Hanover County, and the Native Plants Initiative that has been launched in Caldwell. So we hope you can join us then, learn more, and sign up on the EMG calendar. And in case you missed the most recent Learn, Grow, Share showcase, this was held on September 21st, and it was all about seed libraries. That recording is now posted on the EMG internet under continuing education. Just a few spaces remain on our upcoming travel study adventure to Costa Rica in January. And we held a webinar last week where we highlighted all the destinations that we're going to visit. And we shared that the tour leaders will be Amanda Wilkins, Extension Agent in Lee County, and yours truly. So hope you can join us to Costa Rica. This promises to be a wonderful week, filled with visits to national parks, conservation organizations. We have an evening at a private garden and a spice farm where we learn all about the production of vanilla. So please join us. However, the deadline is coming up to sign up and put in a deposit, and that's November 1st. Alternatively, there's also a travel study adventure going to the Netherlands in April. So springtime in the Netherlands. Please check that trip out. That registration is open as well. All right, as we get to the end of the season, your feedback is important for us. So we want to hear from you at the end of each Plants, Pests, and Pathogen season. What did you enjoy and what would you like to learn more about? So we have a short survey for you, and we ask you to fill that out, help us plan ahead for next year. I'm going to put that evaluation in the chat one more time in just a minute, so you can have that. But this wraps up our 2023 season, and special thanks to Matt and Mike and Charlotte for all their contributions, and to our guest speakers throughout the year. We thank them for their contributions. The new season resumes in February. We take the months of November, December, and January off. So we'll see you again on February 27th. And special treat, shout out to you, Mike. Here is our closing music. So thank you, everyone, for a great season.
Yes, Steve Bambera is recording on the mandolin.
Mike, I
Yay.
interrupted you, but you said that was Steve Bambera on the mandolin.
Yep, that's
Wonderful.
right. And the tune is called St. Anne's Reel.
Beautiful. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you to Caroline and Charlotte for all your help organizing everything and kind of kicking us in the butt to get things going each month. And yeah, so much help. Thank you.
And all
You're
that
very
putting
welcome.
resources together afterward, yeah, that's major also.